Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now, we are joined by Arwin, 10th Man, D-Rose, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello, hello, hello. Let's get it going today.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning, good morning. Good to have you all. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
I don't know what's that.
You can find out if you're a member, because I'm just about to, or have just, depending on if it's uploaded at this particular second, a video in regards to the 3 TikTok bimbos that we covered in regards to gravity last week. So if you're a member, you can see it. It's about half an hour long, because I haven't trimmed them into 3 separate videos, because they all kind of tail into each other with a bit of discussion in between. So I've kept it as a relatively unedited, and by unedited I mean it took about 3 hours to edit it, video, but it's about half an hour long. So check that out if you're a member. I'll probably release it at the weekend or on the second channel or something at some point in the future.
How could there be 3 TikTok gravity bimbos since gravity doesn't exist?
Well, we're covering that very detail in that video, so check it out if you're a member. If you're not, why aren't you a member?
My son said
Become a
that
member.
they dropped a feather and a brick, and they both hit at the same time, no matter where they dropped it from, proving that gravity exists.
And I released a helium balloon and looked up at the clouds and just shook my head.
Well,
No. He doesn't count that. He wants you to explain why they both landed at the same time.
Well, the helium balloon didn't land at all. It went up. And the clouds aren't going down. They're up as well. So maybe explain why the clouds are going up and the helium balloon's going up, but other things are going down. Why?
He's not talking about things like clouds and gases.
No, I
He's
am.
talking about physical objects. This is what he said to me.
Sorry, you're telling me that a balloon isn't a physical object and the clouds are not a physical object. It is. It's just not comporting to their gravity assumption that everything goes down. No, not everything goes down. It's not a law of nature. In fact, it was superseded 108 years ago by bending space-time. But meanwhile, they want to ask you why things go down and then show you a couple of things that go down. And I just have to hold something that doesn't go down and let it go to debunk that and ask why up.
And when you drop that feather and that brick, you're going to describe in the vertical plane changes in the horizontal, correct?
You're going to need a flat earth for that.
Oh, dear.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Negative.
Lit?
Well, one day they might. There's plenty of phenomena, right?
What else can you say when your hands are handcuffed after seeing something you can't do anything with it?
A terrible line today, 10th, by the way.
Okay, I'll drop and rejoin.
Okay, today's video, brought to us by 10th Man, who's just disappeared and will be rejoining shortly, is Sabine Hossenfelder, our favourite. This one's called Do Your Own Research, but Do It Right. Okay, well, we'll have a little looky. I've just put a link to it in the live stream, so as always, let Sabine know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me with a nice kind comment, just letting her know that we responded to her video in the nicest possible way. The vain hope being that were Sabine or any other YouTuber who we do these video response videos about. Were they to respond, you would hope they would return the love, where the YouTube algorithm give us less and less publicity / more and more censorship, the closer we get to pointing out a flat earth is required to assert you're on a globe. The more we do that, the less popular we become, which is unfortunate but can be resolved by you. In this regard, by letting Sabine know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Hopefully she'd put a
Can you
link to me.
repeat that?
Go on
Can
then.
you repeat the title?
Title is Do Your Own Research, full stop, but do it right, full stop.
That's a poisoning the well fallacy. She's poisoning the well right away. This has to do directly because what's going on here, flat earth debate and flat earth in general. And you could tell me no different.
Maybe.
I check.
Yeah, that's much better. Okay. So let's get into it then. Let's have a listen to what Sabine's got to say. Unless there's some particular timestamps that you wanted to go to.
No, you can just go through it. She covers a variety of subjects, and it's pretty interesting. So I think
A
you'll
lot
get
of
into the
scientists
idea
on
of it.
social media make jokes about people who do their own research. This has been going on ever since COVID, and it's only been getting worse. We're now at the point where they're claiming you're only allowed to talk about a topic you're an expert in yourself. Don't you dare commenting on anything you don't have a PhD in. I think this nonsense has been going on for long enough. So I'm here to say, it's of course completely okay if you do your own research, provided you do it right. But how do you do that? That's what we'll talk about today.
Hold on. The subheading is science, but without the gobbledygook. We might have some issues here, Sabine, because you don't deal with science at all, ever. So I don't know why you've got a subheading of this. You say you're combating the fact that you don't need to be an expert in the particular thing that you talk about so long as you're well researched. So maybe we'll be giving you a pass. We'll see.
This video is not a guide for writing a PhD thesis, setting up a placebo-controlled drug trial, or building a particle collider. I'm not talking about how to do a scientific research project.
Scientific research, you're wrong already. Not off to a great start. So none of those things you dealt with just then were scientific in nature. None of them. Particle colliders? That's not science. How's that science? All of the things that you just detailed, not one of them was science.
A guide for writing a PhD thesis, setting up a placebo-controlled drug trial.
Placebo-controlled drug trial? That's not science. What are you talking about? How is that science?
Or building a particle collider. I'm not talking about how to do a scientific research project.
No, you're definitely not.
I'm talking about how to research resources that you can, for the most part, find online.
That's not science. Science is the establishment of cause and effect reasoning based on a naturally observed phenomena after formulating a hypothesis and then actualizing that hypothesis with an experiment to validate or invalidate your presumed cause of the effect you studied in nature. That's science. None of this is that.
It's this context in which the phrase doing your own research has become common. As with most problems on social media, the idea that you shouldn't talk about topics you don't have a degree in started from a good place, and then...
Who cares? Just don't talk about stuff if you don't understand it. Doesn't matter whether you've not a good research base, a PhD, it doesn't make any difference. If you're right, you're right. Then who cares? Doesn't matter what you've done previous to being right. If you're wrong, you're wrong. It doesn't matter if you've done shitload of research to be wrong at the end of it.
Then went horribly wrong. It began in the early days of the COVID pandemic, when few people knew what was going on, but they were difficult to hear amidst the noise of non-experts who generously handed out uninformed opinions.
True.
People who did their own research became a running joke for good reasons, and quite a few of them ended up on emergency wards.
Did they? Let's see how much she examples that.
Unfortunately, the joke continued.
Sorry, baseless assertion fallacy. You showed a cartoon of somebody's grave. Sorry, the fear porn that was used to get people to take the jabby jabs is what you're going to show us with a cartoon and then make a baseless assertion.
after the reasons were gone. And so here we are today, where you're not allowed to quote from governmental reports on, say, gender-affirming care, because that counts as doing your own research. And yes, I'm talking about this because it personally affects me.
How so?
I frequently get people complaining, both here and on other social media, that I'm talking about topics I'm not an expert in.
Well, like science? Yeah, that's because it's true. You're not an expert in science. You don't do any.
Marijuana, climate change, obesity, bees, AI, neurodiversity.
This is all under the subheading of this particular section that was science without the gobbledygook. Now, so far, I am the only one who's defined what science is, and none of this is science. Why is this under a subheading of science without the gobbledygook? This is just the gobbledygook and absolutely no science, Sabine.
Diversity. I don't know much about any of those, or at least I didn't until I had to figure out how to pronounce tetrahydrocannabinol, yet that hasn't stopped me. Some people really, really don't like that. You've probably seen them in the comments here saying I should stick.
Is tetrahydrocannabinol anything scientific, Adam?
Yeah, it's the chemical name for the psychoactive compound in cannabis, THC.
How is that scientific?
It's not. It's the chemical name for the psychoactive compound in. It's just a name.
To physics.
Okay.
That chemical is the cause of the psychoactive effects of cannabis. That is the cause of that.
But that's not what she said. She said knowing how to say the word. She didn't talk about establishing the cause of the effect. She talked about understanding how to say the word.
Indeed, why does stopped me? Some people really, really don't like that. You've probably seen them in the comments here saying I should stick to physics.
The name of that isn't physics. It might be a description of a cause in a cause and effect relationship. It might be. But that is definitely not what she is detailing.
Indeed, why doesn't Sabine stick to physics? I talk about other topics not because I like to annoy people, though now that I think about it, that's definitely a bonus. But mostly it's because I like to be well informed about what's going on in science and...
Really? Those are the topics that you feel are justified by your interest in science? It isn't science. None of it is science. Nothing you have detailed thus far is science.
Engineering and technology, broadly speaking, not just my own niche in physics.
Physics is science. Physics is the study of the physical and natural world. That's science and the scientific method exclusively. When you're talking about the natural world, you're talking about physics.
And I found
He's
it difficult.
confusing pseudoscience with science.
Yes.
No,
Using technology,
she's confusing.
engineering, and pseudoscience with science. That's physics.
Well, she's confusing theoretical physics, what she is. Like she's not wanting to confuse the two. But she is confusing herself. But to her, theoretical physics is physics, and chemistry is something else.
Difficult to find good information that's A, comprehensible, B, doesn't dumb things down, is C, politically neutral, and D, brief. So I decided to do it myself. And unlikely as that might have seemed 3 years ago, I'm now the owner of a science news business.
Hello?
Something happened.
Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
Something wrong.
So none of the stuff that she's going to be detailing in a paper is science. That makes her a fraud. Because if the stuff in the paper is as detailed in this particular section, then it's not scientific in any way, shape, or form. So while she says, oh, it might seem unlikely, no, it just makes you a fraud.
When I talk on this channel, I don't talk as a physicist. I talk as a science communicator with...
Sorry, a physicist would be someone dealing with physics. That's science. That's the dealing of the natural world that is incorporated within the scientific method. That is science. But you're not talking about science. You've got this bit like atmospheric refraction, this term, science communicator. By that you mean somebody who talks about technology and engineering and pseudoscience. But they call that being a science communicator. No, you're not. You're not communicating science. There's been no science in this video, even though this entire section is under the subheading of science without the gobbledygook.
I like the comment. All
Go
right,
ahead.
so she says, when I do my channel, I'm not talking as a physicist, I'm talking as a science communicator. But everything she's talking about is pseudoscience. So she's communicating pseudoscience. Now, the whole point of this video is to do your own primary research, make sure your resources are right, verify before coming out with something. This kind of feeds into making sure that, you know, you got good resources. But when I just scroll down her channel to all the video titles, was Einstein right? Black hole? I mean, there's so many doubts in her titles on the topic that she wants to cover. It's like, wait a minute, did you do your primary research? Are you not believing Einstein now? Was he wrong about black holes? I mean, my goodness.
Has she done any experiment? Because I heard QE say one time, without experiment, it's not science.
That's correct. But before you get to the experiment stage, which they also claim when they haven't got a valid experiment based on a hypothesis, based on a natural phenomena, you've got to have those first steps, which is to say, observe natural phenomena, formulate a hypothesis. What does that mean? Well, it means you suppose what caused the phenomena. Oh, what caused? I wonder what caused that. You ask yourself when seeing something happen in nature. And then you go, I think that caused it. Well, that's a hypothesis. I think this caused the phenomena I'm studying. And when you vary that which you think caused the phenomena you're studying, that's an experiment. Now, she's nowhere near any of that process when she says she's a science communicator. She's not communicating science, ever.
Well, she's got one video called Follow the Science, ? Nonsense, I say. 4 minutes, 21 seconds long. And then she's got another one that we did cover, Flat Earth, Science, Wrong, but not stupid.
Perfect. Yeah, 69 people watching. Nice. Please share the show. Smash that share button. And let Sabine know. At Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, just so she's aware that we're covering her very, very unscientific description of science without the gobbledygook in this particular subcategory of her video. So there's a link going by now. Let her know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Hopefully she'll return the love.
With 20 years experience, backed up by a team of scriptwriters and fact-checkers. Of course I talk about topics I'm not an expert in myself. Do you think the guy on the evening news is an expert on child soldiers in Congo? But I found it difficult to find people to work for me who are good at doing their own research. And so I was thinking, I'll do a video and explain how to do it. Before we talk about doing your own research, let's talk about when not to do it. That's when there's nothing to research, when there's...
Hold on a minute. When she says there's nothing to research, that sounds more like when there's, quote, nothing to see here. Let's see if I'm right.
no information online, other than that coming from people who know more than you do.
So the time that you don't do research is when there's no information available online to acquire the information. So just in that one statement, part one of this explanation about research completely goes against the methodology of science. So if you're doing science, what you're going to end up doing is varying and manipulating something which you suppose you don't know yet will cause an effect that you've studied in nature. You've seen an effect, asked yourself why it might be happening, and supposed the cause of it. Where in that process do I have to look up online anything? If I'm going to actually advance humanity by way of science, I'm going to be doing that by way of the following. That is, varying and manipulating that which I assume causes an effect I'm studying. That's what I do. So you're saying, in terms of what research you might want to do, no. If you're adhering to the scientific method, you can look at an effect and go, oh, I wonder why that happened. Now, you could argue
What?
that before doing anything, you get into the nitty-gritty of whether or not someone else has already taken on this endeavour. Now that, primary research to see if you're wasting your time because it's already been done, and instead of supposing the cause, you could be varying something that someone else has already figured out is the cause by carrying on the systematic experimentation stage. Doesn't make you a genius, but you can assist science by carrying on that process systematically. But if you don't do the research online, as Sabine says, you won't necessarily know that somebody's already done it. But that particular thing that's already been done has already been advanced through the scientific method for you to be researching it. So in terms of advancement of science and humanity and the technology that will come off the back of it, you've got to actually perform the process of science. That is experimentally led. That is to say, the primary bit isn't the research. It's going, I wonder what caused that. I'm going to vary this to see if it actually causes it or not. She's flying in the face of that. Whether or not you do the research is only in the scientific context, based on whether or not someone's figured out why something happened or not. That's the only reason you'd be doing research. Has somebody already figured this out yet? No? Well, then I'll get on with the sciencing of it. Go on, John.
Well, I was getting ready to say she might be talking about the time-saving step of doing research within the scientific method to see if, the cause has already been established, but you already covered that. Never mind.
Anybody else?
The early days of the COVID pandemic were an example of that. If you didn't know your way around with virology and epidemiology, you couldn't make sense of the little data that were available.
And what if you could? Got a pharmacist on the panel. They had no worries. I'm not going to put you on the spot, Adam. I'll just brush over this.
Another case may be when information is classified.
I just don't want you to get in trouble, and I don't want to get in trouble.
I appreciate it. No comment is probably the best comment.
Yeah, no comments required.
Nothing to research, so all you find online is just noise. In such cases, the best thing you can do is shut up.
So the fact that we have a pharmacist who did specifically discuss it during the pandemic with very carefully chosen words would pretty much fly in the face of that statement then. So literally, we personally can disprove that statement.
And listen to the experts. This is why I don't talk about UFOs. This brings up the question of how to recognize an expert. That's a good question, but it'd lead us somewhat astray.
Why are we researching how to recognize others to tell us what's right and wrong? Is that really what this is going into? So it's not telling you how to do primary source research, perform experimentation. It's not that. It's not teaching you of the historic standard or the scientific standard. No. What she's going to teach you is how much you can trust an expert. What about having discernment for yourself? What about figuring it out off your own back? What about that? Isn't this your research? No, it's your research into credible sources.
Being taught how to find the right person who can then tell you how and what to believe.
Yep.
It's
Basically.
shocking.
How do you know what's a good expert? Now let's play What's My Guru?
If you're interested in it, let me know and I'll do another video on it.
If you want to know more about how to discern whether or not it's a good expert, I'll be your expert on that.
So hang on. Let's play Guru. She's the expert on experts.
Yeah, and there's a guru for everything. If you want to know how to discern whether or not you found a good expert or not, there's an expert on that. And it's Sabine. You can contact her in her comments and let her know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. 73 people watching. Obviously, my last call to action didn't work very successfully. Please share the show. I'm very pleased that you're all here. It'd just be nice to have 100 people watching. And even then, I won't be satisfied. I'll ask you to share again. Go ahead, whoever.
As it turns out, I'm an expert on experts who tell you who are experts in things. And I can say that without doubt, she is not the person you should go see for an expert.
And as an expert on experts who tell you about experts who are telling you whether experts are valid or not, I can vouch for your expertise in this regard.
Big part of doing your own research begins before you research anything. Before you start, spend a moment to think about what you can reasonably expect. It takes about
What? What are my expectations? Now, again, we're still in the subcategory of science and without the gobbledygook. I don't know what to expect. My suppositional statement of cause obviously infers that I think that's going to be the cause of the effect. You know, I'm putting it down in a suppositional statement, but I'm kind of hedging my bets because there's a null hypothesis that says it isn't going to cause the effect, leading to an empirical outcome when I vary it. So what to expect? I expect it'll either cause it or not cause it, and either way, I'm going to prove that empirically. So my expectations are very limited in science. That's it'll cause it or it won't cause it. There you go. There's my expectations, as this is actually Sabine's version of what to expect as a researcher when dealing with science without the gobbledygook. Just expect it to prove something if you vary and manipulate that which you assume caused the effect you're studying in nature. Expect that you'll either validate your null or you'll validate your alternative. Something's going to get validated, and you're going to be varying something to see if it's that or not. There you go. That's what your expectations should be if you're dealing with science, Sabine.
10 years to do a PhD. It takes another 5 to 10 years to get a good overview on a research area.
So?
You will not reach the same level of understanding by spending a few hours on Google.
I can concur. Having spent 8 years, and when it rolls into 10, detailing how Earth is flat, I'd consider myself an expert.
No, you won't. You'll have to draw a line somewhere, usually.
Yeah, I draw a line when it comes to gobbledygook-speaking pseudosciences, like your own. And when they have representatives such as you who speak gobbledygook pseudoscience, I like to point out that no. Having had 8 to 10 years of research, and know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to Earth being measured and navigated flat, or navigable flat, then I will challenge you when you've done not even the 10 minutes research on Google, you've passed it off to one of your paid researchers, as you disclaimed earlier. So what? You have struggled to find good enough researchers to do the work on your behalf, but your advice is you can't just call yourself an expert after 10 minutes of research, but you can justify going in front of an audience of millions, having done 0, and trusting your researchers. What a bloody hypocrite!
That's
That
at a
was
point
perfect
where it
timing.
just doesn't matter for your purposes. For example,
was.
when I was talking about whether to legalize marijuana, I didn't really need to know the biochemical pathways of THC.
So you're telling me not knowing the biochemical pathways of THC, which, if known, might save lives. But you not knowing it, you can say whether it's good or bad. Adam, this is something that we will not get in trouble for talking about on YouTube, given that you are specifically in this field as a pharmacist. But would you say that that's quite destructive language that she's just used in terms of research about whether or not you can politically condemn something without knowing the medical research? Isn't that pretty much what she's standing against? Adam's presumably dealing out drugs to somebody.
Yes,
currently.
I'd say so. Yes, definitely.
I've literally just heard Adams presumably, and yes, I was doing what you presumed. Was there a question?
She's saying that she, when she was asking the question of whether or not marijuana should be legalized, she didn't, and I quote, "I didn't really need to know the biochemical pathways of THC, full stop." But she's prepared, not based on research, but based solely on her researcher's information that she's been given, prepared to offer up the discussion for the condemnation of marijuana without knowing any of the medicinal benefits and researching them. I would say that that's quite destructive. I'm asking your opinion as a pharmacist. He's back to doing the job he's doing, isn't he?
I'm muting myself again. I'm muting myself. Sorry. If you're going to make an assessment of a drug, it's biological pathways, it's pharmacological action. So it's one of the primary things you're going to make the assessment on the efficacy of that drug. Sounds like she's again just wanting to be told whether things are good or bad, and then she'll go into militant mode and defend them or protest against them based on what somebody else says. But that bit's kind of the reason you would do pharmacology and stuff, to see the pathways so you can make an assessment of the drug.
and then go on to decide whether or not you should suggest condemnation or praise.
Yes.
Yeah. She's not done that, though. She's a total hypocrite. Shout out to Godzilla37. He says, the interruption has been brought to you by Godzilla's Super Chats, your source of unwanted interruptions to FED. Absolutely not. I welcome every interruption from you, Godzilla, because it's got money attached and I am extremely poor. Thank you very much for the Super Chat. I'm even going to give it a little heart. Ding. Right, let's move on.
Can I say something? Hey, everyone.
Hey, Brian.
I'm going to go with no.
All right, go ahead.
Well, why say, Brian? You said it 2 weeks ago. We remember.
Yeah, we have definitely covered this a couple of weeks ago, but go
already
on,
said
let's
it, yeah,
recover
that's the
it. Go on, Brian.
No, what I heard was her saying that you need 5 to 10 years to become an expert. So you can't just become an expert by a few hours of supposed research online. Basically saying you don't need to become an expert, you just can be an expert. That's what I heard, to make an opinion. When it came to the legalization of marijuana, our example of that is like, you don't need to know much about it, just, you know what I mean? It's like, I thought you needed to be 5 to 10 years and become a big expert to know this, to make an opinion.
That's true, because then she changed over that she's an expert on experts who took 5 to 10 years to do the research.
To be fair, I've just looked this up, and in her bio it does say that she has done a PhD, which took her 8 years on expertise. So, I mean, she is kind of justified in that. She does know what an expert is. She spent 7 years researching experts.
I want to say how well Adam phrased that. He must be a real pharmacist.
That's true.
He is a real pharmacist.
Obviously.
What are you talking about?
He is a pharmacist, and Nathan was wise to bring him on. But here's the deal.
Joking.
I know you are trying to make a transition.
Well, don't do that, because I'm the first bit of simping off a Neil I've ever had. So let me lap it up.
Very good. Okay. Obviously, as we cover Einstein, general and special theory, relativity, gravity, all these questions we have in the housekeeping questions, Sabine would say these are experts in their field that we've already debunked. So if society is going along with a pseudoscience narrative and the experts are not doing experiments but observe and declare, and all of mankind is like, hey, these are experts, believe what they say, there's gravity, there's this, there's black holes, etc., then you're living in a false reality and you're calling everything experts and proof when none of it's gone through experimentation. So it's like a bubble of experts.
Well, how many years does it take to become a gravity expert?
If you are a member of Nathan Oakley 1980, you can check out my latest video, which is a collection of TikTok videos called Gravity Bimbos. So, yeah, check it out if you're a member. It came out just before the live show started. Sorry to cut you off, Brian. I just got to do a shameless plug for my own stuff. Times are tough.
No, it's a good time to do it, Nathan. You have to do that. What would you have to do to become a gravity expert? First of all, you'd have to define which of the 5 gravities you're going to become an expert in, right? That'd be number one. First, you'd have to know that there is 5 gravities. Then you'd have to decide which of the 5 gravities you're going to become an expert in. Then you're going to have to find out if the gravity that you're going to become an expert in is worth becoming an expert in by seeing if it's validated through scientific method. So
there's 6 of them now, Brian.
I know you're going to say the upward rising Earth.
I don't count that. That's not mainstream rhetoric.
I don't count that myself. Yes, I don't. That's just some the electric gravity I'll go with, but I don't know if I can go with that one. But either way. Let's just say either way. Let's just add it in. It don't matter for this instance. How many years would it take for me to find out that gravity doesn't exist and it's only actually relative density? And I call that, as an expert, specific gravity. How long would it take me to find that out and become an expert? Would it take me 8 years?
No, it'd take a couple of days, maybe a week, if you really, really researched it.
It was
I,
like she's so stupid. Like, how many people are out there that are spending 5 to 10 years becoming claimed experts, and one question can end that 5 to 10 years. All their expertise can be shown to mean nothing. You know,
Right.
Watch our TV for a lot of these people, and that's it, isn't it? Expertise out the window. Sorry,
I
go on,
got
Ken.
I got a Samsung TV. If you really need to know, what John said, isn't it Einstein who says the Earth is rising up?
Well, he says the Earth is accelerating upwards. They're saying it's not accelerating.
Sensual Goat says, if weed isn't recommended, then how am I going to get high enough to see the curve? Thanks for the super chat.
Well, he came to the right joint to ask the question.
We were talking about pharmacy. All this drug talk's a bitter pill to swallow.
I hate to be blunt, but we need to stop this.
Let's roll on.
Nice one, Adam. Nice one.
Okay, if you've got no skin in the game, let's just move on.
When I was talking about climate models, I didn't really need to know how to numerically integrate the Navier-Stokes equation. I find that it helps to make a list of concrete questions I want answers to before I even start.
A list of things to appeal to the expert with. No. Again, we're still in the same subcategory, aren't we? Science without the gobbledygook. What question? Well, the question is, I wonder what caused that. That's the only question in science. What caused that? Science exclusively deals with cause and effect. Effect is the thing you go, oh, check that out. And then you ask the question, I wonder what caused that. That's the only question. How is that going to formulate a list?
That prevents me from going down.
Go on.
I was going to say that means in science, it's not about the expert. It's about the validation of the experiment on what the expert researcher or whatever you want to call them says. So it's not just what they say. It's them demonstrating it through experimentation that gives it that validation.
And what is that
So
demonstration?
you don't have to trust them.
Go on. Sorry, I thought you'd done.
I was going to say the experiment, which proves the cause of the effect. That is the standard, and she's missing it.
And without
Exactly.
experiment, it's not science.
Well, without the experiment, you don't have the elucidation of the cause of the effect you're studying. And the elucidation of the cause is that thing that you're supposing. So when you're saying, I wonder if this will cause the effect I'm studying, because that's going to be the thing you varied to see if it causes it or not. Validating your null or validating your alternative upon doing so. So this list of questions is merely, I wonder what caused that. And then, will this cause it? Well, let's vary it and find out. But at that point, you've done the entire process of science.
On rabbit holes.
Don't miss what
Well,
John.
some-
Don't miss what John was saying there. He said it better the first time than when you asked him to do a second time. He said, and you must demonstrate it, which means it's repeatable by someone else to do the same experimentation empirically. And so we don't care what your opinion is. We don't even care if you want to be called Mr. Expert or Mrs. Expert. Show us the steps. We'll do it, and we'll go with the empirical evidence. That's what John is saying.
Or to put it another way, what I will do, I won't trust you. If I get to that first stage that we give her a little bit of leverage on and say, okay, first step research, I'm going to find out if someone else has done it or not. If I come across somebody online who says I've already elucidated the cause of that effect, the whole point of science is that you continue to do it. Systematic experimentation. That is to say that I don't just say, oh, this guy online says he's done this experiment. Well, there we go. Science has been fulfilled. No. You go, oh, right. What was the phenomena you studied? Is it actually the phenomena you aren't studying? Oh, it is. What was your presumed cause? Oh, it's that. I will vary that, and I will see if it causes the effect I'm studying. But fortunately, because I found you online, oh, thanks, Sabine, really useful. I found someone who says they've established the cause of this effect. They've validated their alternative hypothesis. They have ruled out the null. All right, well, I will see if that is actually the case or not. I'll do the experiment, and then I'll document it, and then hopefully someone else will do it, and it will never change. However, if you only
And
have
that's what
the one instance,
Sorry.
you only have the one instance where some dude says, "Oh yeah, I varied the old cause of the effect there, and it definitely caused it. Yeah. All right, can we see that? No, I did it. I didn't film it. I see. So you say you've proven that this causes that? Yeah, I have. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, I'll take you at your word. Science has been fulfilled. You've only done it once. Nobody else has validated it also, but we're going to take it as read that science has been fulfilled. Wonderful. Let's move forward in life. Oh, what do you know? It didn't actually cause it. This stupid idiot didn't follow the process correctly. He didn't formulate a viable hypothesis. He didn't do any experiments. In fact, he took the alternative hypothesis to be the explanation. He didn't even do the experiment. Didn't have a valid hypothesis. That's why you do it. So if you're wondering whether or not you can validate some of the claims you see on TV, what was the example she's given so far? COVID? Fine. Then as I detail thus, you can ask those same questions. What's the phenomena we're studying here? Science be praised, you say? All right. Well, what's the presumed cause that was validated through experimentation of this effect you say we're experiencing? I see. Well, now that I have satisfied myself that I have seen this effect, I will now vary and manipulate the cause you say of this effect and see if it really does cause it or not. What's that? Nobody's done that. There isn't anybody who's gone through this process, but they're still telling me about this cause and effect relationship. Where's the science for it? There isn't any. Oh, right. But yet me experts said that I should be doing X, Y, and Z to combat this problem, didn't they? Where's the science? There isn't any. That's why we don't just trust the experts. That's why we continue the systematic experimentation stage. If it's been done at all, which in many instances it hasn't. Go ahead, Neil, first. Then John.
You paying attention, Jaron? This is what you tried to explain to Jaron, and he just hand waved it.
Anyway, let's not make this about Jaron. Well, go ahead, John.
There is an aspect to funding. Like, not all of us can afford the equipment to do the like delayed choice quantum eraser, right? So you could just say, well, therefore I don't accept it. But that would be wrong too.
Which is bloody lazy.
Because other people.
We just had a Black Friday Amazon discount day on argon pump lasers, so that no one's got any excuse. They're half price.
Yeah, half price is still really expensive. You know what I mean?
2.6 million. That's a bargain.
What if you have a light budget?
Boom.
Nice.
Nathan,
but there's other ways to deal with that. There's other ways to deal with that because, you know, the guy that created the delayed choice quantum eraser isn't the only one that's done that experiment. So that's, at that point, you could search out the other people that have done the experiment and got the same results or differing results. If it's wrong, you know, you would be able to find that.
Speaking of which, I've got 3 slides of Neil deGrasse Tyson on this very same topic you can comment on in Masterby. Or not.
He's probably on mute and you don't even realize it.
I thought someone was going to talk about it. Fine, I'll read it. I'll read it. Yeah. Science is an enterprise that should be cherished as an activity of the free human mind because it transforms who we are, how we live, and it gives us an understanding of our place in the universe. I was with him right up until an understanding of our place in the universe. Is our place in the universe a naturally occurring phenomena?
He's an astrophysicist. Remember our housekeeping question here.
Any single viable
Negative.
hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics? This guy thinks that science is going to elucidate our place in the universe. That's not a phenomenon, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Why, are you an idiot?
We'll go to the second one.
When different experiments give you the same result, it is no longer subject to your opinion. Okay, I agree. That's the good thing about science. It's true whether you believe in it. That's why it works. Sorry, believe in it. Belief is not part of any prerequisite for science. Belief, you might believe that you've got the right cause when you say, I think this caused that. But fortunately for the empirical method of science, it comes with a null. So it doesn't matter how strongly you believe you've got the right cause of the effect. When you vary it and it doesn't cause the effect you're studying, no sad faces, because you've just proven the null. Yeah, you proved it didn't cause it. But you still proved something. But your belief might have been absolutely tantamount right at the beginning. I really think this will cause it. Oh, it didn't. I really believed it would. So what? It doesn't mean anything when it comes to science. And when you're specifically detailing experiments, you're detailing the variation of that which you assume causes an effect you're studying nature. That's an experiment, when you actualize a hypothesis. Say, I think A causes B. Well, let's vary A. Variation of A is an experiment. That's all an experiment is. Varying that which you assume causes an effect you've studied. So that when you wiggle it, vary it, manipulate it as a researcher, it does actually cause the effect you studied. In the first instance, the thing you observed in nature. So this belief crap sandwiched into whether or not experiments give you empirical outcomes. Yeah, they do. But it's not subject to an opinion. Yeah, that's true also. You've got empiricism. But then the belief, that you might believe something mid-process, so what? Let's move on. Next.
Hang on. Before you move on, two things. One, go to the last slide. I want to comment on that. But here he is in a field, astrophysics, where all he could do is observe a phenomena. He can't do anything after that. But he wants to steal the valor of science as if he did do something after that, like experimentation. And so he is basically acting as the expert. And in that last slide, as you see, he says the same thing. The good thing about science is that it's true whether or not you believe in it, Neil deGrasse Tyson. But if you look around his neckline to the right, ignorance is a virus. Listen to the words they use. The meaning, you can trust me, I'm the expert, we've done everything. But his field won't allow him to do everything, to even go into the scientific method. He's an astrophysicist. All he can do is observe a light in the sky, and that's it.
Sometimes. Besides having reasonable expectations, I also have to constantly remind myself to be honest with myself and acknowledge what I don't understand.
Be honest with yourself and trust in the experts.
I know from past experience that if I start glossing over incomprehensible sentences, that much increases the risk that I make mistakes.
You mean don't talk about stuff that you don't understand? If there's a word that you're using that you don't understand, don't use it.
A good example is the blunder in my video on the greenhouse effect, where I said that the gravitational force decreases with altitude, and that's why the air density decreases.
I vaguely remember ripping you a new one on this. Maybe it's just because we rip so many pseudoscience claimants a new one when it comes to forces of gravity, which is 108 years out of date.
Now, it's right that the gravitational force decreases with altitude. And
Really? Well, your experts aren't serving you so well in this regard, are they, Sabine? Expert editor of Scientific American, George Musa, says, quote, gravity is not a force. What about Brian Cox? I'd consider him an expert in your pseudoscience field. There isn't really a force of gravity at all. End quote. Professor Brian Cox. I'm pretty sure he knows what he's talking about when he comes to bent pseudo-force space-time. Yeah? But you're talking about how much or little of this force there is going to be in the what now sphere? Exosphere, thermosphere, mesosphere, stratosphere. Why are they all sphere-shaped and yet simultaneously in homogeneous layers? What's all that about? They look very sphere-shaped to me. Meanwhile, none of this is science.
And it's right that the air density also decreases with altitude.
That would be air density, as opposed to gravity.
But the former isn't the reason for the latter.
That's because gravity's not a force.
She just, sorry, this is really good. She's just admitted that the heliocentric model doesn't exist. Because as soon as you admit and realize that what you claim to be happening, which is a force of gravity, is not causing the air pressure and the air pressure gradient.
That's it, game over.
Like she just did.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it, game over.
It.
Yeah. So what's holding the gas to the spinning water ball flying through a vacuum again? Gravity? No, it isn't. But as Sabine has now realised, when she needs to employ gravity to hold the mesosphere to the sphere-shaped ball in a sky vacuum without it dispersing in violation of the second law of thermodynamics, she just says that gravity's a force. It's not.
How will gravity?
Go, John.
How will gravity and its change in the vertical with respect to the horizontal, how will that ever keep air to a ball?
It can't, because the description's derived from a flat plane, and the ball that's Kepler-based derived from a flat plane also never gives you the ability to actually reify the ball, because you appreciate that all of the angle measurements have been derived from a flat plane. The origin of your ball can't be a flat plane. It has to be a ball and isn't. It's flat. So it can't, it won't, it doesn't. She shouldn't.
Obviously not. If you think about it for more than a millisecond, that doesn't make any sense. The density would decrease even if the force didn't depend on the altitude.
What force would that be? What, the non-force force that you can think of as a force that isn't really a force of gravity? Doesn't make any sense. Again, still in the subcategory of science without the gobbledygook, it seems like that subheading was just you stealing valor from the scientific method to ascribe even your mistakes in this instance under that subheading. So what, you correcting a mistake you made when bullshitting about gravity as a force is science without the gobbledygook?
And why did I get this wrong?
Sorry, she specifically made a video. It's a 5-minute video about how gravity is not a force. And she went through all the details of general relativity. Yes, it's not a force. Her video from about 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
Because the combination of words sounded kind of plausible.
I see. So you should recommend to me the experts to go to when your own bullshitting incorrect video is incorrect because to you, the words sounded kind of plausible. You are absolutely out of your freaking mind if you think you should be advising people on what experts are good to go to. You should be condemned. You personally, how dare you suggest that you can recommend good expert when your basis of publishing to millions is, well, it sounded all right. What freaking outrage!
And I didn't think about it.
So, based on the fact that you give it no thought, you're going to recommend other people their experts? Is this a joke?
I left the video up the way it is because
you're a complete fraud. Give her over 1 million subscribers. Give her millions of views, hundreds of thousands of them. She's admitting she does no research, she relies on other people to do it for her, but yet, in spite of her not having any particular expertise in a particular thing that she has only just learned how to pronounce the bloody words of, yeah, she can get stuff wrong, but what's the justification? It sounded all right to me, and I left it up anyway.
it doesn't matter for anything else I said there.
Yeah, it fundamentally opposes the 108-year out-of-date rhetoric of a force of gravity. Hello? Your own video says it's not a force. But, well, it doesn't change anything, because we still teach it as a force right up until the end of your high school education. Because we need you to damn well understand that that force is holding gases here. Yeah, it isn't. But that doesn't change any of the heliocentric rhetoric we still lie to people about. So I left the video up. I see, Sabine. Well, that means perfectly justified in me recommending you as a bloody expert.
But I'm still embarrassed about it.
Oh, right. But you're still making money off the video. Still bringing you an ad revenue. It's still garnering views. And still misleading people. But you feel quite embarrassed. I see. Should we be recommending you as an expert to anybody, given that you're a charlatan who admits you're a charlatan, you get things wrong, but you don't correct them or remove them? No, I think you should be committed. That's what I think you should be. You're a nutter.
Another example is the story about how the core of Earth supposedly started...
Supposedly? So are we still in science without the gobbledygook? So science is dealing in the supposedlies? Go ahead, whoever.
I would just say, well, we can't say she's not admitting to her mistake because she's saying she has made a mistake. So that would be unfair, right? We all make mistakes. But what we could say is, in her position, especially considering her prior video, how could she possibly get that wrong? As in, how could she possibly call gravity a force when she actually made a video about how it's not a force? How can she be an astrophysicist and ever claim that gravity is a force? Because it can't be for what she does. For the paradigm that she has a supposed PhD expertise in, I think she's pretty much an astrophysicist. You can't call gravity a force because it can't be a force. Now, with the exception of gravitational accretion, which is a force with gravity, but it can't be. So I don't know. Like, fair enough. You said you were wrong, and you said you were embarrassed about it. Video's still up, grand, whatever. But I don't see how you could get that wrong. And I'm really primarily interested in who corrected her, and how did they know this? Did they maybe somehow, was there people removed from them that ended up listening to people like us saying this is total nonsense? It doesn't keep gas to anything because gas does not adhere
no,
to
it's fine. It's fine. Apparently,
force of gravity.
She isn't the only expert on experts, and she went to an expert on experts and found out the expert who corrected her. He was vetted, Brian.
All right.
As the expert on experts who give you the experts, I would like to know which expert on experts she went to so I can vet whether he was vetted.
And as a vetter of experts on experts who validate expertise, I would like to know so I can vet it. And I haven't been given that opportunity, John. So, you and I both feel very, very reluctant to offer any credence to this recommendation because it hasn't been vetted by an expert on experts who recommend experts, such as yourself. And as an expert who vets experts who recommend experts on expertise, I would like to be able to vet your work when you do it, and you haven't. It's an outrage.
Spinning in the other direction. Remember that? Someone from my team put this in...
So remember that supposedly? It's like when I say that in science you've got a supposed cause of an effect, but it's a supposed cause that you haven't yet validated. But you're asking me whether I'm familiar with your yet-to-be-validated hypothesis taken as an explanation. What, you pseudoscience? You fraud? You're taking a supposed cause in a cause and effect relationship, aka hypothesis, not validating it, dishing it out to an audience, and then asking if they remember about your bullshit about how a core rotates the other way. Well, that definitely hasn't been validated through systematic experimentation, now has it, Sabine? Is this going to be another time you end up on egg on your face because you haven't followed the method? What's this again? What's the subcategory? Oh, yes, science without the gobbledygook. And meanwhile, a lot of disclaimers about how wrong you were. And do you remember the supposition that's not been validated? No, we don't need to remember this because it hasn't been validated, Sabine. It's worthless.
Into the script that I was supposed to read.
Yeah, do I need to mention anything about that?
I couldn't see how that was possible. Where did all that angular momentum go? how could the core suddenly start going the other way when it...
What core? Have you measured the core? Do we have a core? Are these the questions you've asked about your pseudoscience when detailing a cause and effect relationship that hasn't been validated? No, you're not asking those questions. I mean, you said that we had to have a list of questions. You haven't given us any. You've just gone on to disclaim how wrong you are. Quite a lot.
It's
Can I
coupled
just
to
say
the
that,
mantle.
Nathan?
Go on.
Go on, John, I'll go after you.
Okay, how do you measure the angular momentum on a curved surface?
Oh boy.
Well, you first need to derive a radial value to infer that you've got a curved surface. So I suppose the question would be, how do you derive a radial value to infer that you've got a curved surface? Brian?
Well, what I was going to say is I noticed that when she left the previous topic that she was saying she was wrong about concerning gas pressure being caused by gravity and went to this next topic to do with needing a flat plane to determine what kind of angular momentum you have. She failed to give the actual reason for the gas pressure gradient. It's not interesting because we've been saying the actual reason, not that we have to make a claim about it, but I mean, we've been fighting against the ballers, her side, for years, that there is no force of gravity and it isn't causing the gas pressure gradient. She admits it's not causing the gas pressure gradient. And as a supposed expert, you think she'd then say, I was wrong about that. What it actually is, you know what I mean? All she had to say was maybe temperature, something. Give it something. No, nothing. So if I didn't know any bit better and I'm listening to this, still don't know what causes it. I don't know where to search. And if I look online, they start telling me a force of gravity. That's what they tell you online. They try and tell you a force of gravity for most of it. That's what they try and feed you at the start. So you'd have to actually search a bit down the list to get to somewhere where they might start talking about how gas pressure works and all the rest of it. But the point is that she didn't turn around and say, I was wrong about that. It's not a force of gravity. It's actually blah, blah, blah. She didn't say that. Why did she not say that? Well, why wasn't she capable of saying that?
Oh, because the expert who corrected her didn't tell her.
Yeah, that's as good an explanation as any. Yeah.
Or no explanation. Just say that you were wrong. Don't follow it up with a correction. But obviously stand by the fact that you're going to be good at recommending experts to people.
So what is that? An appeal to education? What is that she's doing?
A fraud?
No, it's the gap between the younger ages where they teach them it is a force, and then as you get to university, they say, well, it's really not a force. It's that gap that she's in. She's got two things to juggle.
Oh, you know why she didn't say anything. I know why she didn't say anything. I'm sorry about this. I know why she didn't say anything. Because then she'd have to start, if she did start elaborating at all, she'd have to start talking about what causes gas pressure. Right, in the first place.
Yep, exactly. You have to get down to the nitty-gritty of what causes the delta of the gas pressure. There's a gas pressure gradient. Right, okay. How do we have gas pressure? What would gas pressure be? Oh, it's the force exerted on the walls of its containment, the area of volume available to the gas pressure. Yeah, you've got to achieve that to then have a delta of it. That would be a gas pressure gradient. That's what she was detailing. Now, as Brian's just pointed out, you'd have to get down to the nitty-gritty of gas pressure gradients and the delta thereof being a consequent of a force on a containment for the gas pressure to exist in the first instance. She's never going to get to that. She's going to say, oh, I might have got that a bit wrong. Obviously, it seems silly. Okay. Also, Brian, I was hoping you would just answer John's question, which has now become rhetorical and there's too big a gap now. But in terms of the derivation for how you'll describe something with respect to the horizontal with gravity, John, although he's dropped now, would be to derive an axis. And to derive an axis, you'll need that as the R value for a sphere Earth, and that has been derived from a flat plane, either by Al-Biruni's derivation of a dip angle measurement after measuring a mountain's height off a flat plane, or by way of the differential between eye level and surface level. Either will suffice to give you an R value, to give you an axis to rotate around. Flat Earth required.
So are you saying it all started flat?
Yes, thank you for summarising over the top of the conclusion in the middle of it, Neil.
Oh, it sounded like
Liquid
you
layer
stopped.
in
Excuse
between.
me.
Just like that? Wouldn't you at least expect a very good explanation for how this can possibly happen? I didn't understand what my scriptwriter had written.
Sorry, you want to recommend some experts to me? Can you make a video about how to recommend experts? I'm sure your scriptwriters will do a really good job of researching it for you.
So I had a close look at the paper. And sure enough, it turned out that the paper wasn't about the absolute rotation of the core, but the rotation relative to that of the mantle. The core of Earth used to spin a little bit faster than the mantle. Now it seems to spin a little bit slower.
That's a baseless assertion. Are you going to demonstrate in any way, shape, or form how this has been proven? We're still in the subcategory of science without the gobbledygook. So here's the gobbledygook. Where's the science part that validates these baseless assertions about us A, having a core to begin with, and B, its bloody direction of travel? With respect to the mantle, are you proving any of this?
And yes,
You
that actually...
just
Hang
had the
on.
gobbledygook, Nathan. You know that.
That was incredible there. That first of all, when I did, and when Brian does, or anyone here that I know of does research, they own it. I can't afford a script writer, so it's not primary research if a script writer does it. That's number one. That's the whole point of our video.
The science without the gobbledygook means that you actually get the gobbledygook without the science.
Yes.
That's how this works.
Well,
Yes.
well, why does she need a script writer in the first place? I mean, if she is an expert, why would she need someone to write a script for her for a video? If you already know the topic and the subjects, why would you need that?
Because she doesn't.
Not
You can have
only
an
that,
editor.
Brian,
Because she doesn't.
not only that, if it took her 8 to 10 years to gain the knowledge she has, then that means the script writer would have to do the same thing just to be a script writer.
Just to
Does
get
have
to a position where she can afford a script writer.
Well,
Tiny
listen, you're a
faculty.
PhD. You're a PhD in astrophysics, but you don't have a YouTube channel. So come and work for me and write the script, and I'll take all the glory. Oh, my script writer made a mistake after 8 to 10 years of research like my own, and it's the mantle, not the core. Excuse me, what mantle? What core?
I'm guessing it would be P waves and S waves, and what you calculate as the mantle and core are moving relative to each other at different speeds.
Sorry, did you say P waves and S waves? That they're measured with respect to the return signal off a flat plane?
Oh, never mind then.
Measuring the angle.
Starting
They're
flat
measuring.
again, huh?
They're measuring the angle of the return signal. That's a flat plane requirement for P waves and S waves. So again, she's just reifying and missing out the step where you take the measurement. So when I said earlier in the show, they just take a measurement and start with the angle. In fact, it was in the pre-show. I was talking about my power button failing on my computer and saying that I had to disconnect all of the front header cables from the motherboard. And John's like, yeah, that's what they do with heliocentrism. They just disconnect the first step of acquiring angles from a flat plane so that it's not mentioned. Okay, so we've got these angles, and these return angles with P waves and S waves tell us how the spherical core's behaving. Sorry, angles off a flat plane, you say? Telling you how a sphere core behaves? No.
On the length of the
Could it be
day.
that they're just not putting it together, Nathan? Like, we know it's coming off a flat plane. Could it be that they're just not putting 2 and 2 together?
Yes, and the more we highlight this, the more researched we are, the more learned we are, the better we discern this and disseminate it to an audience, the less people watch. 85 people watching. Please share the show.
Suddenly,
Can I
it
just
all
say,
needs...
You can.
yeah, well, she's trying to, the nonsense she's coming up with there about the core of our globe Earth, that it wasn't actually going backwards, it was just starting to go, well, she said, basically said it was going slower than her mantle. Now, that's a lot of nonsense, right? But what she's basically describing is what they claim as retrograde motion. Whereas they try to claim that it's something starts going backwards, it doesn't go backwards. You know this, right? You know enough about astronomy to know that that is not what happens. It just may not go at the same rate, but it doesn't start going backwards. So, you know what I mean? It's like the original claim of this core going backwards, it was bizarre and all that it wasn't going backwards. It was just going at a different rate than the mantle, a different rate than it used to do in accordance with the mantle. So they're literally lying to you. But even before they start telling you all the gobbledygook, they're literally just lying to you. It's not going backwards. It's changed its rate. That would be different, wouldn't it, than going backwards?
Thank you, Brian. That was good. But mantle, what mantle core? What core changed the rate? It's not even there.
Yeah, but the point is that before they even told you about it, like that's because she obviously fell into this trap. She went and said, it's going backwards, when what was really happening within their paradigm is that it was being claimed to change its rate in accordance with the rate of the mantle. The point is that it was a lie from the beginning.
You remember?
Technically, they went wrong. She just reported what she was under the impression was the thing to report, which was a lie. But so a lie about a lie. Go on, sorry, Tim.
Yeah, no, a lie about a lie.
A different position about something they don't really know.
Neil deGrasse Tyson came and said, don't worry about it. It happens every 70 years. Oh, really? That answered the lie about the lie about the lie?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, what happens?
The assumed to be spinning core, assumed to be a core, and that's assumed to be slowing down and then changing its spin direction. So, that proves there's a core, right?
FED is in the business of deconstructing the globe, and all roads lead to flat Earth.
Sense. Now I understood it. Why did I not just read what my scriptwriter had written and make the same mistake as many others? Because I didn't understand it, and I didn't want to say something I didn't understand. So when you do your own research, keep track of what you do and don't understand.
Have you never heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? You don't know what you don't know. So if you're keeping track, let's just remind myself, do I understand this? Yes, I do understand this. Tick. Let's look at the next thing. No, that confirmation doesn't in any way help you. If the thing that you are confirming to yourself that you understand because you've checked it off mentally doesn't validate the thing as actually being true or not. You don't know what you don't know. You might think you know everything about being on a globe and therefore think you're really smart. Yeah, until we come along and point out that your derivation from a flat plane gives you your globe belief to reify into you standing on. You're not. So what? Checking that off on the...
keep track of what you don't know. You need to keep a list. So everything you bump into that you don't understand, you don't know, you need to make a list. And that'll help somehow.
Yep.
Something else to get out of the way before you start is acknowledging your own biases.
Pause. Yeah, very good. Perfect timing. Acknowledge your biases. Andrew Thomas Young, like the rest of them, will do everything based on a flat Earth, as he did his refraction calculations, all came from plane surfaces. And then he does this bias. But we know we don't live on a flat Earth, so we'll do geometric consideration. So first of all, they're in the business of assuming everything is happening on the globe, but they've never proven it. So they have to talk about the mantle, the core, and all these things. Never proven. Orbits, never proven. Gravity, never proven. And it's all based on these biases. What the implication of the nonsense?
Well, if you take someone like Chocolate, if you take someone like Andrew Thomas Young, what happened there was he realized that he's measuring everything across a horizontal plane. And then he said, it can't be a horizontal plane. The only explanation is that the ball is expanding in size visually.
Okay, let's just stick to this before we go on to Andrew Thomas Young.
If you're doing research on a topic that you've previously put forward strong opinions about, you might be reluctant to admit that you were wrong. The best way I find to deal with this is to remind myself that admitting to being wrong is the hallmark of a good scientist. Yeah, I still don't.
Which you are not.
Wrong. Sorry, being wrong. You're never wrong. When you are a scientist, that would be to say you have adhered to the scientific method. you're never wrong. When you make a scientific prediction, you predict that your presumed cause of an effect you are studying has the antithesis within the prediction. Your presumed cause will not cause the effect you're studying, aka a null or zero difference result hypothesis. So you have your prediction, alternative hypothesis, and you have your null. Now, being a good scientist is varying that which you suppose causes the effect. So when you detailed the effects on a molten iron core you haven't proven, and then asked us whether or not we remembered them, that was you mistakenly taking half of a hypothesis, that would be the alternative supposition of cause, and declaring it as a statement of fact, without actually varying that which you say causes the effect. Now, in that instance, the effect itself is completely conjured. What molten iron core?
Don't like it, but it does help a little. I find it difficult, especially with topics that I have worked on myself, such as specific dark matter models. Another factor...
You worked on the models yourself, did you, love? Oh, how interesting. Yeah, this is still under the subcategory of science. Physics. The physical and natural world. Yeah, you're not dealing with those things. You're dealing with your little computer models. Who's interrupting every single time? Is it Neil? About the fourth time.
No, that was me.
No, it's not
I'm
Neil.
sorry.
All right? There
It was me. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, John.
Damn it, Neil.
I was going to say, I wonder if her models presumed an asymptotically flat universe.
It will, yes, absolutely, without question. Needs a plane of reference. Has to have one. They expand it out to the entire universe. It's still a plane of reference, though, isn't it? 86 people watching. Did anybody actually share the show?
I see what's going on here. As long as it's John, it's okay. All right, no problem.
Because when John does it, it's occasional and totally justified. With you, you'll interrupt the end of my point I'm summarising in the middle of me summarising it to ask the question about the summary that I haven't quite given because it's been interrupted by you. That's irritating. With that instance, it was just an interruption and I called it badly,
And that's
assuming it was
bullshit, and you
and
know
like
it.
now, you're talking straight through the middle. In a second, you'll tell me you thought I'd stopped, even though it was literally mid-sentence.
Yeah, did you think he was discontinuing his sentence, Neil?
No, I wasn't, but I was calling action. So please share the show. There's 85 people watching, which is wonderful. But if we can just squeeze to 100 people, it's going to take the effort of you pressing that little button that says share. See it? You're looking at it. I'm talking to you. That's right, you looking at the screen. Me looking back at you saying, it's a little button under the video that says share. Press it. And then press Facebook or whatever you're going to share it to. And then say, yay, great show. That's all you got to do. It's really easy. It takes 10 seconds. 87 watching. Someone shared. Thank you. Welcome to you if you've just got here. We will extend the show a little bit because this video is dragging on. It's not dragging on. It's getting a lot of reaction from my panel and myself.
That can bring in bias is if you or someone you know is personally affected. Suppose you had an expensive and painful procedure that...
If you have been personally affected by heliocentrism, don't tell me about it. I don't care.
The doctor said would help you, but new research finds that this intervention doesn't have any clear benefits. You're likely to insist that it worked for you anyway, because that makes a good psychological protection. And that's fine if it's just your personal way of dealing with it.
What?
Not so fine if you...
Not so fine if you're dealing in science, because then you'd be establishing the cause of an effect by systematically experimenting on the presumed cause to validate that it did actually cause it. You're detailing the placebo effect and saying it's fine.
You tell others the studies...
I find it kind of funny that she's talking about psycho. Who are the ones that tend to psychologically go off the handle when they realize their whole paradigm is wrong?
Well, anti-flat earthers.
Who are the ones that do that? Oh, okay.
Well, she is describing her bias within heliocentrism and how she can't bring herself to even question it.
It's wrong because you don't like the result. So we have reasonable expectations, honesty with yourself, acknowledging biases, and that puts us in a good position to start with the actual research. I suggest you start your research by looking for peer-reviewed review articles.
Why? Why peer-reviewed? Does peer review add some scientific validity? No, it definitely doesn't. Most people have the slightest idea what peer review actually means.
Government reports.
So government? Why? Why would you look at the government reports? Aren't they dealing with policy and politics?
Lecture notes and text.
Why would they lie, Nathan?
Why would they lie? What, to keep us well and much under control?
Books. Then you read them. Yes, this is going to take some time. No one said it would be easy, but you don't have to read all of this in great detail.
Not if you're doing science. I mean, if you were doing science, you'd be formulating a hypothesis and then seeing if the cause of your effect that you're studying actually causes it or not. Empirically validating it with an experiment. That's what you'd be doing. Go ahead.
Go on, Brian. I'll go after you.
Just saying, the only book you need is the book of how to formulate the. Go on, Nathan.
No problem. What she just did there, peer review, government studies, and the list goes on, as we know, is placing authority structure, thereby you're a slave of the system.
Government studies have said that we should go to war with this other country.
Well, you're going against the system and the educational processes that your children go through from cradle to grave. I mean, you can't go against that. I'm not biased when I say that. We have to trust that it's all peer reviewed now. That's our basis of truth. And anything you find that contradicts that, hush, hush.
Meanwhile, science is advancing humanity and she's not detailed a single aspect of it once. She's vaguely hinted at something that might have been closely described as being a phenomena at one stage in this entire discussion. The gobbledygook. Gotta thank my people. 92 people watching. We will actually hit 100. I wasn't optimistic it was going to happen, but it looks like it is. But in sincerity, a very warm welcome if you've just got it. Sabine Hossenfelder is who we're covering. Please let her know that at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, in the vain hope that she would respond and put a link to our video and help us in the algorithmic love that leaves me e-begging for shares on a daily basis, because we don't get any. The closer we get, the better our research is. The more we point out that you'll need a flat earth for all these globe earth concepts, the less we are being distributed, even to my own subscribers.
Those sources usually begin with an overview, and most of the details that follow later won't be so important for you. The important thing to take away is what the key questions are that you need to pay attention to. A review article is basically an overview on the status of research, and some scientific journals specialize in them.
Sorry, the overview of whether or not you've actually got around to varying and manipulating that which you cause the effect, to see if you can continue in that systematic experimentation process. It's letting you know at that stage where you're at in the scientific journals, because if they're scientific journals, they'll let you know whether or not you've validated a cause and effect relationship or not. That's what they'll be doing. They're not. They're pseudoscience journals that let you know where the state of the peer review is at and how people like Sabine have taken their description, which is half of a hypothesis and alternative, a declaration of cause and effect when it comes to molten iron cores, and I'll ask you if you've remembered it or not. Not telling you if it's anywhere closer to being varied to validate it as a cause of the effect. Oh no, these aren't science. They're just called science. Yeah, you call them science journals, and then when Sabine tells you you're going to research them, oh, you're going to lend so much more credence to them. We're just going to shatter that credence right here, right now.
The Nature Group publishes...
Yes.
Brian, are you there?
Nathan, Brian,
Yes,
are you there? Now you
I'm trying to get Brian to talk to me here. Just relax. You said something just a few minutes ago. The ball is expanding its size is their answer because their bias is we live on the ball, but they do all their calculations off of a horizontal plane.
Wrong.
So they never do it off of a ball. They do it on the horizontal plane. But because my bias, I'm on the ball, now that means the ball is what? Expanding its size, 7 over 6R, 20 over 6R.
No, that's
depends
wrong.
on the
That's
day.
incorrect. No, that's what John covered earlier. That does not expand the ball. It does not make it less curvy, less ball-shaped, more flat, it expands the radius, doesn't it? It expands out the flat plane that's being dealt with. John covered that this morning.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying I don't. I'm not saying I'm not in agreement. I'm 100% in agreement with that. I'm taking Brian's summary of what they're doing.
What they're doing is trying to explain how the horizon can be so far away. That's actually what they're doing, and they're ignoring the fact that they've had to measure everything over a horizontal plane, and then claim that what's actually happening is an expansion or a very visual expansion of their globe, which is pre-assuming that there is still curvature between your feet and the horizon, but it allows, they need to do that to allow the horizon to be further than it can actually be on a physical globe of 3959 radius. So that's what it is. It's all about the actual, what they need to deal with is the actual horizontal distance to this optical place that keeps changing its position. That's really what they have to deal with, because that's what kills them. So they have to pre-assume there's a curve, but they need the mathematics to show how their horizon, if it was refracted, could be this far away.
Which would increase the radius of their pre-assumed globe Earth to a larger Earth.
Well, what it is it puts them in a position where their radius is always 4,618 effective miles, because that's their effective radius. Their actual claimed geometric radius, 3,959 miles, can't be measured because there's always at least 7/6R. That means there's always 7 or greater than 7/6R at play, which means you will never, ever see the geometric horizon that they need to base 7 or greater than that 7/6R on.
It's like saying go gadget curvature.
Yeah.
Yes, go gadget curvature, yeah.
Just a lot of them, and if you can find one on the topic you're interested in, that's usually pure gold. You find governmental reports either on the governmental websites or that of the Ministry of Science and
She's a cuck.
Education, or whatever it's called in your country. Other good resources.
Did she literally just tell us go to the Ministry of Science?
Hang on.
Really?
NASA paperwork says the Earth is stationary, not rotating. Government report.
I don't like it the other way either. I hate that, in fact. That really, really grinds my gears. NASA are liars. NASA don't prove anything. NASA say that they've rung the moon like a bell. That kind of goes along with my ether belief, you know. I'm going to cite NASA. Now, it's different when you cite them as a hostile witness. That is to say, you take something that's easily verifiable from a million other sources and just say, I'm going to pick NASA because they're in opposition to us. For instance, when they demonstrate, as you've just done, like the example you gave, contextualized correctly is perfectly acceptable as a hostile witness, right? So, yes, they're describing how aviation works. But are you going to find a million other sources that aren't them when they are the aviators, they are the main authority when it comes to such things that back them? Well, yeah, but it's all them as well, isn't it? FIA or whoever else. It's all...
Well, it's the Martin Marietta, McDonnell Douglas. But since you said they run it like a bell, I just wanted to chime in.
Perfect.
Are specialized national institutions such as the National Academy of Sciences in the USA or the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany. After you know what you need to pay attention to, you can move on.
How do you know what you need to pay attention to? Look up Dunning-Kruger.
To meta-reviews if they exist.
Oh, sorry, my bad. I should have paid attention to her telling me that I got to get the expertise information from the experts that she's validated right after telling us about the mistakes she's made and left up.
Exactly.
Well, isn't it funny that she's sending you to governmental websites that has been proven to put people wrong within the past 3 years?
Well, what you really need to look for in those papers is the hypothesis construction. You need to look to make sure that there is a null, it is testable, and then the experiment and what the experiment results. If you know how to look for that, you can cut through a lot of crap.
Yeah, QE used to tell me how to do it. He says if you're studying some white paper or something like this, government research papers, peer review papers, type in to the search independent variable and see what comes up. He says 99 times out of 100, you'll get absolutely no return whatsoever.
Exist in the field you're looking at. A meta-review is a summary of previous research studies. Meta-reviews can be great and save you a lot of work, but enjoy them with some caution. A summary of crappy studies does not make a good study. You should only trust meta-reviews if they assess the quality of the studies they summarize.
So only accept these studies if they summarize the studies that they have taken their research from. What if those studies are wrong? Surely there's a method at some point that can be empirical. Yeah, there is. Yeah, it's the scientific method itself.
Right, but she just invoked qualitative results. And she hasn't even explained how you get qualitative results to be invoking them. She is a fraud.
Absolutely correct.
And not just lump together different data. And after that, you can move on to the most recent studies. Then you should have a pretty good impression of what's going on in the field and be well prepared to put new stuff into context. Okay, now...
Sorry, do I have to contextualize a validated cause and effect relationship ever? What context do I need to put it in? A caused B. Where's the necessity to contextualize that?
There isn't any.
So it's pretty cut and dry, just an empirical outcome. You can just state it as fact. A caused B.
Now let's talk a bit about how to search for scientific literature.
Just told you. Find any paper that's claiming to be science, go to the search bar and type in the word independent variable and see if it comes up or not.
And how to understand what you're looking at.
Most of the time you'll be looking at pseudoscience, and if it doesn't establish a valid hypothesis that's been actualized, that's an experiment, then it's not worth anything.
First of all, if you're searching for scientific literature,
then you'll need to know that it's followed the scientific method.
Suggest you don't use Google's main interface.
Who cares about the methodology of search? Makes absolutely no bearing whatsoever on what the information you're actually looking for is. That's all that's relevant. Is the information that you're actually looking for scientific or not? Not what means will you look for it from.
But you use Google Scholar. Indeed, in many cases, Google will suggest that you switch to Scholar. Google Scholar shows you quickly whether a paper has been published in a scientific journal.
Because that means it's science. If Google Scholar points out that it's been published in a scientific journal, then you can trust it. No. What I would want is a Google that just does what I've said and takes every single document and puts through a search whether or not it's got an independent variable. That would be a supposed cause of an effect that they're detailing, or not. And if they don't, then they are not science. And if they don't, they are automatically pseudoscience, and therefore it matters not whether or not it's published in a scientific journal or not. Who cares?
And it has an extremely useful feature, which is that it lets you search for articles that have referred to an earlier article.
Oh, so I see. If the article you find declares that A causes B, doesn't detail that you've actually tested that supposition at this stage and just declares it as fact, but that supposition stated as fact is backed by another research paper in quotes that has also stated that that half hypothesis has actually been taken as being a true statement, and therefore the new one that you've looked at is backed by the old one that you haven't yet found. Therefore, Google Scholar makes what you find true. I see. That's fantastic logic. Other than if it's science, it'll have actually been through the scientific method. It'll have had a validated cause and effect relationship based on a valid hypothesis, based on observing a natural phenomena. Google Scholar doesn't give you that.
This is great if you have a fairly old reference and you want to know what's happened recently. All you have to do is search...
Right, old reference with science. What's happened recently? A causes B. I don't trust you because I'm a follower of the method. So you may say that A causes B, and you may say that you've experimentally validated that. But I am now going to vary A and see if it causes B or not. Following on with the methodology of science, which is to say you perform systematic experimentation. So you do the research, find out someone's actually done the experiment, and then you double check that they have actually done it correctly by varying that which they assumed caused the effect. This is what you actually do if you're doing anything to do with science.
For all papers that have cited the old one and sort them by date.
Who cares? There's nothing going to be happening, as you put it, now that's any different. And this is a really early experiment that some numpty has made a cause and effect relationship published that hasn't been validated, or they've done something incorrect in the experimental setup. But then somebody like me would come along and go, well, I want to check that that's actually the case by carrying on the method that I understand and varying that which they say causes it to see if it does or not. And then when I show that it doesn't, and then multitudes of other people also show it doesn't, they all validate the null, we can take it as read that the first numpty just got it wrong. Yeah? But you're saying if the old research says the same as the new research, then you can take the new research to be true and see what's going on in the field now. No, this is your description of how to see what's going on in the fields of pseudoscience. What did they say last time? Oh, it still tallies with the old paper. I wonder what they're doing now. They'll still be bullshitting about cause and effect relationships they haven't validated. That's what they'll be doing now.
Nathan,
I think this alone.
I hope John's here, refracted, to comment on this. None of what they do for Globe is A causes B or A doesn't cause B. None of that scientific method is there. They used Eratosthenes' angle of a shadow on a plane, and Al-Biruni, who used a right angle triangle and the difference between two horizontal planes, so to speak. And in celestial navigation, they use the equatorial plane. Nothing that her bias that we live on the globe, or Andrew Thomas Young or Neil deGrasse Tyson, has gone through A causes B or A doesn't cause B. It's all derived from a flat Earth angle measurements. All of it.
Well, as she has proven earlier on, she spoke about the pandemic, right? The supposed COVID pandemic, and about how it was so difficult to get any information, and it was so convoluted and everything else, and for the average person couldn't get information, right? This is what she was saying, right? You couldn't get information on this, right? You were looking for it, you couldn't get it. Now, you could only get whatever they told you on the news, whatever. Then she tells you a bit later on in the video, if you want to know what, go to governmental sources, the very place people were going to and not getting any actual proper information. Do you know what I mean? It's like she's sending you back to the very place that she earlier on detailed couldn't give you proper information when it was of utmost importance, supposedly. Why would you trust anything this woman has to say?
Well, not only that, but everyone knows for any pharmaceutical company to come up with any vaccine that's working, it takes 10, 15, 20 years of testing.
With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!